82 miles one way.
Oh.
And back.
Right.
It was one way. But we had a carpool, and there were some folks that were commuting from AF that lived up in the valley because property was less.
Mm-hmm.
And we would drive down in LA traffic and get there by, we worked 7 to 3. And, well, that was tough, you know, up at 5:30,
Right.
out the door at 6, hour to work. Today, you couldn't, I don't even think you could do it in an hour.
Probably
But
not.
later, I moved to Valencia, which is halfway between the Antelope Valley and the airport, where the regional office was at. And then I got able to transfer to Great Lakes.
Family in tow?
Yes.
Husband still a controller?
Yes,
Mhm.
the specialist.
Okay.
He had now gotten a staff job. So we went, I was the free ride. He got that job, and then I went 2 for 1,
Right.
no PCS. And we had, how many kids? Jeff had gone in the Navy, we had Russ, Bill, Laura, the youngest, and a dog and 11 puppies.
Oh no. Oh my goodness.
We had
2 cars, I hope.
an RV.
Ah.
So I got a playpen for the puppies, put them in there. They were just born, they couldn't take them away from the mother
Right.
because she was feeding them.
Oh my
And
goodness.
timing is everything, Terry.
Yes. What an adventure.
Yes, it was.
Cross-country adventure with children and puppies.
Got to Chicago and got like an apartment at the Sheridan
Mm-hmm.
until we could find a home.
Right.
And they said, do you have any pets? I said, do you have a dog? They didn't list puppies,
Nah, they weren't real dogs yet.
but the maid turned us in.
Oh no.
So $800 or $1,000 deposit. So, but they were puppies. They were in a playpen. They
Right.
didn't hurt anything. They just, I called them poopy puppies.
That's what I call my dogs now. And they're grown.
Anyway, that was quite an adventure, and I went to work in the Great Lakes Regional Office in evaluations, and he worked in, I think, operations. Anyway, it was, it went along fine. And that was during the strike.
Ah, I'm surprised during the strike they didn't have you back on the boards.
I'm surprised also, but I became the person who was doing the hiring for Chicago and Cleveland Center. And, you know, that region really got hit. I called it the blue collar mindset, you know. They believed in the West there were less people who walked out because they understood about needing jobs. They didn't have that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they did in the Midwest.
Wow.
The 4 centers, Cleveland, Chicago, Indianapolis, and Minneapolis.
I really believe the strike
Yeah.
would get them more money and fewer
Yes.
hours.
Yes,
Wow.
you know, and across the FAA, 10,000 people walked,
Right.
controllers. So, I liked working there, but during that same year, they had an assessment center for those individuals who wished to become an air traffic manager. So you had to go through this, and it was a really difficult interview with headquarters men, well, I say men because that's what they were, sitting around the table, and you were there being hit with question after question after question.
Procedural type questions or just...
Procedural, but how do you deal with the union, and what would you do if the union did this and or wouldn't do that? And so it's your response and your proposed action.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been through a mini one out in California where you went through an in-basket exercise. You know, what do you do with all the papers in your in-basket? But that didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
This interview was really important, and it was in headquarters. And again, I was the only one. only woman,
Wow.
so I passed.
Yay.
And I got back to the regional office, and the division manager said to me, well, you got a feather in your cap. You made it. You're the first woman to be on this hallowed list of those who could go on and interview to be a manager.
Mm.
So the first job offer I got was deputy at Cleveland Center. So you have to have a number 2 before you have to be vice president before you
Right.
be president. And so I went to Cleveland. It was tough. You know, my daughter at that time was like 7, 8, I
Oh
think.
my.
And
It wasn't a twofer this time?
no, and the boys stayed there, the 2 boys that were still at home. And then I got settled in Cleveland and came and got my daughter at the holidays, because I went down there in October.
Mm-hmm.
And I found an apartment, and I came and got her in school, and
And she was the baby?
yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And my youngest son stayed there to finish high school,
Mm-hmm.
and my oldest son was in the Navy, and the next son was running around the country with one foot on a banana peel, as I used to say. He was a challenging kid. He's a challenging man today, so I love them all. Love them all. And I went to Cleveland, and after I was at Cleveland, which suffered badly from the strike,
Right.
they lost over 200 controllers, and there were still picketers at the front gate,
Oh my goodness.
and everybody heard about the woman coming in, and
Mm.
so that was a challenging year. But then there was a lot of positions that became open, and I was called to interview for the manager of Boston Center. I don't know, Boston Center, that's interesting. So
Another very busy center.
yes, I interviewed there, and later that year, well, this is now 82, 83, 82. My daughter and my middle son, the banana peel kid, and the dog, and 2 cats, and we caravanned to Nashua, New Hampshire, which is where the center is.
Right.
And found a place to stay. Later I found a place to buy. Was going through a divorce and getting back on my own, and became the manager of Boston Center.
Wow.
They had no women controllers when I got there. Now they suffered from the strike too, but New England is a very close-knit
Mm-hmm.
communities. Nothing at all like Chicago, Cleveland, or LA.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knew everybody. And there would be people at the ice cream stop or the Chevron station that would say, well, what's that broad doing out at the center today? Oh, creating hate and discontent, of course. No, I enjoyed nice people, but so unaccustomed to a woman
Right.
in the facility. The first all hands that they set up so I could meet the troops, they introduced me as, isn't she cute?
No.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Very inappropriate for the new manager of the
Mhm.
facility. But the lovely gentleman that said that was thinking nothing but the best.
Right.
Just, you know.
They just didn't know.
Yeah, an unusual
Now, were you
animal
the
here.
first female center manager?
Yes.
Trailblazer.
A lot of firsts. A lot
Mhm.
of firsts. And that puts you in a special,
Oh yes.
not a category, but it's how you do as to how women behind you will be
Exactly.
welcomed
And
and
that's
accepted.
a whole different set of pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was all about helping other women get ahead.
Mhm.
As we continued, PwC had that big hit in 82, 81 was a strike, but 82 was when they didn't show up, and continued to exist. And there was lots of efforts to keep PWC alive, but it was difficult financially, physically, getting together and having people take responsibility for planning conferences and such.
It's a lot of work.
There's a bunch of great women that have passed in and through PWC. And some here today, we call us the oldies but goodies.
Right.
And after I had been manager at Boston Center for about 3 years, I got a call from LA and said, would I be interested in coming back and being the air traffic deputy division manager?
Wow.
I said, absolutely. Is it snowing out there? Because it was snowing where I was at. And in 1984, my sister and my daughter and a cat drove from Nashua, New Hampshire to LA. And I started there in May of '84, which was the LA Olympics in '84.
Oh my goodness, yes,
And
that's
that was
right.
quite a thing. So I enjoyed, that was really a challenging year, air traffic, and they hadn't filled the manager position yet. They did, Wayne Newcomb, nice guy, but had been in different fields in air traffic. It was interesting. And
So what grade level? You're 15 by now? Okay.
Wayne, Mac McClure was the regional administrator. Regional directors, they called them back there.
Right.
There was a big thing about losing that director to being an administrator. And he called me and he said, you need to have an IDP,
Like what?
individual development program, or plan.
Plan, I think, yeah.
And he said I needed to have some things outside air traffic. I said, well, okay. He said, are you going to school? I said, well, I haven't been, but I had gone to school up in Lancaster on, if I had a mid, I could go during the day, and
Right.
took some courses in meteorology and private pilot written. And so I said, what do you think would be good? He said, well, fill out your IDP and let's see what you need help with. So I did, and he hired me, moved me into a new position called resource management, and took accounting and budget and management systems and put them together and put me in charge. Now, where had my career been?
Right. Surprise, this is all new, right?
Oh my goodness. What I learned though is if you treat people like what they do is important. I don't care if you're doing my travel voucher or whatever.
They'll respond, right?
Yes. And it took me, because there was no inherent love between these three entities. And they liked being on their own. And they didn't want to have get together with budget and accounting, They were adversarial. But
Was personnel part of this?
no,
Oh, okay.
only that they had to,
Right.
align the people. And but it was called AWP 40, and I started having employee functions once a month based on birthdays. And then I had a Jehovah's Witness come up to me and said, we don't do birthdays. I said, well, you're invited to ours. So anyway, it was challenging again, but during that time,
Now it's, say,
what year is it?
yeah, what year is it?